Hi, and welcome to Mondays with Marlo. I'm really excited to have this woman, this friend, this darling with us today. I mean, if there's any woman we think we know, it's you, because we've been watching you for years, and you've been so open about your life, about your child rearing, about the loss of your husband. You showed us your colonoscopy. I mean, we really know you inside and out, and we like you.
That's true.
And we
Up
still
close
like
and personal. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Well, that's good to hear.
And we're thrilled you're here. So we have lots and lots of questions for you. Our community loves you. They've been asking for you. I want you to know. I've been nagging you for
yes.
such a long time.
Marlo is a very persistent person. One of the many things I admire about her, but she's like a dog with a bone, and she wouldn't give up. And I'm so glad I can be here.
Me too.
I think the world of you, and it's
great.
Just it's going to be a fun opportunity.
Maybe I should book your new show. I could book your show for you.
Yeah, that's right. Oh my God, you could. You're very effective. You're a very effective booker.
Okay, so we're going to start right off. This is from Trudy. Trudy wants to know what's the best advice anyone ever gave you. Trudy's right in there.
Hi, Trudy. Well, I think probably the reason Trudy might have asked that question is I wrote a book called The Best Advice I Ever Got, and it's going to be coming out in paperback and in April. And I think it's full of essays written by various public figures about kind of their trials and tribulations and what has helped them kind of accomplish the amazing things they've been able to do. But I write the beginning of each chapter, and I think probably I have a few pieces of advice. My mom, believe it or not, who is not a pushy stage mom at all, used to tell us to let them know you're there.
That's
Which
great.
I think is funny.
That's
I think
good.
she just didn't want us to be wallflowers. She wanted us to kind of go for things and be assertive and really follow our dreams. And my dad used to, of course, say, which I think a lot of parents have said to their kids, do the best you can.
Right.
And fine in our family was kind of a dirty word.
Oh,
like,
yes.
you did fine. That meant
God.
you're kind of average.
Yeah, right.
And whenever anybody says to me, you did fine on something, I kind of bristle.
Or you look fine.
Oh, yeah. I'm like, what? That's a bad word in my family. But I also think when I was starting out in my career that I had a lot of naysayers saying that, I wasn't really maybe glamorous enough to be on television, or I didn't have the skills. And I remember seeing this Kathy Boynton Cup after the head of CNN told me he never wanted to see me on the air again. One of the low points in my career, many low points. And I saw this cup and it said, "Don't let the turkeys get you down." So I always think about that.
That's right.
Because I think there are a lot of people who try to kind of cut you off at the
There's
knees.
a lot of turkeys.
But you have to have a lot of, confidence in yourself, and to thine own self be true has also been an important thing that's always been in my mind. Never give up. Never give up.
For sure. This is from Patty. How do you know when to say no to work? How do you decide where to draw the line between work and home life? That's a big question.
It is, and it's hard. And Patty, I appreciate that. I wonder if you're probably a working mother like I am. And I think, obviously we have professional obligations and we have to pay attention to that. But I'm sort of in a constant state of calibrating my life as a single parent. Am I doing too much? Am I spending too much time at work? Am I traveling too much? I try to have a social life. Am I going out too much? Am I spending enough time at home? With now just my 16-year-old daughter, Carrie's at home. My older daughter, Ellie, is in college, so it's less of an issue about her. But once in a while, if I think it's just too much, I'm in a position now that I can say no occasionally. Or if I think I can't get the kind of quality I want to be a part of a show, or if I can't book the right guests, I'll say, I don't feel comfortable doing this because I want to make it sure that everything I do is as high quality and successful as possible. So I think when I'm afraid that it's below certain standards, I try to get out of things.
Right.
To be honest with you, and then again, I just sort of always try to figure out as I go along if I'm spending too much time.
It's a daily thing.
Yeah, daily or weekly. Usually,
right.
I'll say, "Gosh, I did too much last week. I really need to be around and be home much more this week."
That's great.
Yeah.
That's good. This is from Yasmin. Girls aren't raised learning how to manage money. How and when did you learn?
Yasmin is so right about that. And Yasmin, unfortunately, it's not my strong suit even today. I think that is so important. Financial literacy, is what it's called. And kids are now being taught it more and more. I think I'm fortunate in that I had my parents, my dad passed away this summer, but both my mom and dad, thank you, were real children of the Depression and very frugal. You know, and I was taught from an early age, if I've got a $5 bill and a birthday card from my grandmother, that went to my college education.
Really?
Always. I never was able to, go to the store and buy chewing gum or bubble gum and the things I really wanted to do with that money. It automatically went into a college fund. And I think that really kind of impressed upon me the importance of saving money. And my parents were quite careful with their money. We didn't take extravagant vacations.
Right.
I mean, we were decidedly middle class, so we couldn't really afford to take extravagant
And how do you
vacations.
teach your children that now that they're not so decidedly middle class?
Yeah, well, I think through just watching me, they know that it's really important for me to impress upon them that what they need to understand the value of something if they really need something. I'm not as probably as strict as I should be, but I remember when Ellie was in second grade, she wanted a baby G watch or something. They were all the rage.
Yeah.
They were big and plastic, and it cost $100. And I said, Ellie, there is no way as a second grader, or she might have been in fourth grade, I can't remember, I'm going to buy you a $100 watch.
Right.
That's absolutely out of the question.
Right, yeah.
So I think they know, and again, I think kids learn so much from watching their
Right, yeah,
parents.
exactly.
And they see that I'm not an ostentatious
Right.
person, that labels don't really matter to me.
Right.
Marlo said she liked my Chanel jacket, and I told her it was from J. Crew because, I think the whole idea of spending money, so much money on things that don't really matter seems sort of silly to me.
Oh, that's
so
great.
I think
So your parents, a lot of your
my
parents.
parents, and then I think like many working women, I've always had that bag lady syndrome, that I'm afraid that I'm going to ultimately become a bag lady.
I know. Gloria Steinem is planning for it.
Right.
Yeah, she says we're going to be bag ladies when we're old. We'll get a little place to live, a little house, and we'll all just have our bags right in the house.
Yeah,
She's
well,
planning for
unfortunately,
it.
most sadly, most bag ladies don't even have a place
that's
to
right.
live. But I think,
Yeah.
I always want to have not mad money, but some
nest
kind of
egg.
security,
A
a nest
nest egg,
egg,
yeah.
because especially in my business, which is so unpredictable.
Right.
And based on often the whims of a new executive,
Right.
you don't
Yeah.
want to be stuck. So I've really been careful about that.
That's great. And so your parents actually is where you learned it.
Yeah, I think so.
This is from Jacqueline. She says, I lost my husband too, and I'm just back out there dating. Do you have any tips for me? There she is.
Oh, Jacqueline, I feel your pain. It's I think it's all in the attitude. I try to be really open-minded, and I think that you can't go out on every date thinking you're going to meet Mr. Right necessarily, or even Mr. Right Now necessarily. I think that if you have the attitude that everyone has something to offer,
Right.
and a lot of people are interesting, everyone has a story to tell and experiences to share, and just feel like it's a nice opportunity to expand your circle of friends or get to know somebody in a different field.
It must be hard that the feeling that it's almost like, how could you ever replace this person that you love so much? There's not going to be anybody like that. So you probably have to get rid of that feeling too, right? That
Yeah.
that they're not going to replace anything that you had before.
Yeah, I'd like to think that there's room in people's
Yes.
hearts for more than one person,
Right.
and it is really hard to lose somebody you love so
Right.
much, especially if you had a really happy marriage.
Mm-hmm.
But I also think that it is possible to find happiness a second time.
Mm-hmm.
In some cases, a third or fourth time for people, but
we know a lot of them.
that you just have to be open to it, and you have to be on guard when it comes to comparing every person
Yes, that's what I would
to the
think.
person that you love so much and lost. But I think I think it really is all in the attitude, and just trying to have fun and learning from everyone
Yeah,
you meet. I know it sounds kind of Pollyanna-ish.
No, but I think you're right. If you're hoping that it's always going to be the right one next time, you'll never have any fun.
Right, exactly.
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
think it usually happens when you least expect it anyway,
That's
right?
right. I went on the Donahue show, and that's how I
It
found
really?
it.
Is that how you met Phil?
Yeah,
I didn't realize
Yes,
that.
I did.
And so, was it instantaneous?
It
or?
was.
It was?
Yeah.
You were like,
Yes.
really?
We flirted horribly. It
You
was
did?
it was
On the show itself?
It was and people come up to me on the street to this day and say, "I saw you on that show, and I knew it. I just knew it."
Isn't that funny? Is that the first time you had met him? That is so great. Was he crushing on you before he had you on the show?
No,
Little bit?
no, no.
Did he watch you in That Girl?
No. Oh, yeah, he'd watch me, but he had
One of my
5
favorite
kids and he
shows,
had
by
no
the way.
time for me.
Oh, all right.
This is from Lydia. When you get knocked down, what
I
are
thought it said when you get knocked
So
out.
did I. I thought the same thing.
Good.
I thought, what a question.
That's not going to happen, Lydia. Okay.
Okay, Lydia. When you get knocked down, what are 3 tips? Our audience loves tips.
Tips. Okay.
So what are 3 tips for getting back up after you get knocked out? We get this question almost for every guest.
Really? That's interesting.
Yeah, because everybody wants to know, how do you get back up? And that's why you're a success. People are successes who don't take the setbacks. And
I don't know.
and-
I think it's sometimes when you get knocked down, it's okay to feel crummy for a while.
Right.
I think that we are so intolerant of any kind of unhappiness or
Right.
pain that we just want to immediately get out of it. And I
Right.
think sometimes you have to accept that you don't feel great or something bad happened, and you have to kind of let that go through you to kind of acknowledge it. I
So
know
what-
that sounds kind of
No,
weird,
that's
but
good. No, that's
accepting
good.
accepting that
not
you're
avoiding
sad.
it. You have to go through it.
Yeah, and just say, okay, this happened. I think secondly, it sounds cheesy, but I think you do have to look at the things in your life that make you grateful. And, if you have
that's
children or really good friends or people who need you,
Right.
I think it's always helpful to be mindful of that. And then I think, I always feel like if you just, on a beautiful day like today when we're inside doing this show, you have to go out and kind of appreciate just the joy of not feeling physically bad. I think I got so much perspective when my husband got sick, and we never sort of appreciate the fact that we're getting up in the morning and and nothing is really wrong with
Right,
us.
right.
Like we can get up, we can get out of bed, we
Right.
can get dressed. I think about a friend of mine who died of ALS who couldn't even walk to brush her teeth or get a cup of coffee.
right.
So I think you have to really appreciate the simple things that you're able to do and just be grateful for that
No, it's
too.
very zen.
Yeah.
Gratefulness is a big thing, and some people don't know how to feel it.
Yeah.
They can't even see it. Those are good tips. I like those
Okay.
tips. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm going to get them. I'm going to use those. Oh, this is from Stephanie. As a mother, what do you recommend to help kids with cyberbullying? Did you have that in your
No.
with your children?
No. I never. My kids never experienced that. At least they didn't tell me if they
Right.
did. They don't tell me everything. But I mean, I think probably the best way to avoid cyberbullying is to just talk about bullying in general.
Right.
Because I think that we have a responsibility to educate our kids that they shouldn't be a bully, and the ability to stand up for themselves when they are being bullied.
Right.
I guess to have a open conversation with your kids all the time. I think you should also talk to your school about how they're talking to the kids
Right,
about bullying,
right.
because I've brought that up. I brought up the internet in my daughter's high school when it was just becoming much more in vogue, and what
Right.
were they doing to educate kids how to responsibly use the internet. This Common Sense Media, a friend of mine runs it, named Jim Steyer, and they have classes in a lot of
really?
schools where you should have him on the show because he's so interesting.
I
He's
will.
coming out with a book in May called Talking Back to Facebook, how to
Oh,
deal
great.
with kind of this
Oh, that's
internet
great. We've
obsession.
done so many on bullying.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
really into
but
that.
I think that, to be honest with you, I think kids emulate their parents, and I have always tried to treat everyone respectfully, whether it's the cab driver or the police officer on the street or a little old lady crossing the street. I think your kids watch how you relate and the respect level you have with other people, and
Did
then
you
they
ever-
follow your lead.
Did you ever talk to your kids about what to do if they're a bystander to a bullying event?
Not really. I mean, my daughter had a situation where she was kind of bullied, and we talked a lot about how hard it is to challenge your own social standing by standing up for someone else.
Right.
But how important it is.
Right.
But, so I think that I have talked to them about it, and my girls are very strong, and I have no doubt that they would step in and keep something from happening.
Were you
but I
bullied
think
at school? I'm sorry.
I wasn't bullied
Yeah.
at school. My sister Kiki was bullied at school, and it was just so painful. This was a long time ago. My sister's in her 60s, but this whole group of girls was really mean to her. And finally, one of our neighbors went to the school because I think my mom didn't know how to handle it.
Oh,
My
wow.
sister would come home crying. They would push her in the hall,
Oh,
and
my.
and the neighbors Mrs. Newman, Lois Newman, went up and talked to the principal of the school because her son had told her how Kiki was being bullied. So,
So it's always been there. It's just how we.
It has always been there. I think
bigger.
with the internet, you can do it anonymously. I think this has changed our social interactions to such a huge degree. So I think it's something you should definitely talk to your kids about. And I have talked to mine about it, and through various experiences they've either seen or experienced themselves.
Well, good. This is from Monica Coyne. What's the one story that slipped through your fingers that you really wanted to get? Oh, I bet there's a lot of those, right?
Yeah. Unfortunately, Monica, there are a few of those. But the one that comes to mind is I really wanted to do an hour special on Christopher Reeve, and had gotten to know him and his incredible wife, Dana, quite well through the years. Dana, who sadly died of lung cancer shortly after Chris died, which was just, to me, one of the most tragic things I had ever witnessed. And I was so impressed by his attitude. I mean, he was just such a phenomenal person, and had such a will to live and a will to help others, just as importantly. And they were going to do an hour special about his road to recovery, and Barbara, he decided to do it with Barbara Walters, and I was crestfallen.
Oh, wow.
And then, I realized, hey, why wouldn't he do it with Barbara Walters? She's an amazing person. She's got a long history with them. Good for her. Damn it for me. But she won, I lost next. That's
right.
what Barry Diller says.
That's right, exactly.
Yeah. So I was really disappointed not to get that. And of course, I did want the first interview with Sarah Palin, and that went to Charlie Gibson, and I was pretty bummed out about that as well.
I don't remember that. I only remember yours.
Really? Well, Charlie did a good job. He went up to Alaska, and he did an interview with Governor Palin there. But I remember when they told me he was going to get the first interview, I was like, don't! Like Bart Simpson. I was so upset. Oh, that's more Homer. Sorry.
Well, I'm sure people want to know about. Do you have any memories of that interview? What can you tell us about that interview with Sarah Palin?
Oh, well, I think it was, because she had had such a little exposure on the public stage, I thought it was important to find out where she stood politically, what kind of policy position she supported. She had been at the UN that day, so it opened up the door to ask her a lot of foreign policy questions. Right. And I really just wanted to see, just to learn more about her. Right. And so the questions I came up with, I thought would indicate kind of a position, accumulated knowledge, and an ability to be a critical thinker.
Right.
And I took some of the most pressing issues of the time and tried to fashion questions about them that would elicit answers that would be revealing.
Right.
And so that's what I did. And
what made you think to say, what do you read?
That was totally off the cuff, and it always makes me laugh that that's the question people remember.
It was so fascinating.
I was just interested because she was very, very entrenched in her particular political views, just as somebody, who was extremely left-wing might be.
Right.
She was quite conservative in many respects, and I was just wondering what shaped her political philosophy.
Right.
And I just thought that was an interesting question to say.
It was a fabulous question.
Because I think we're all influenced by other opinions and the things we read, and that's why it's important, I think, to read a lot of different things to get different perspectives. So I was just curious.
It was a good question.
What in her formative years made her take on these positions? Was it her church? Was it the Bible?
Right.
Was it different publications? Was she a big fan of William F. Buckley? I didn't know.
She read The Nation.
Yeah, I just didn't know. So
it was great, though.
I think she was just angry at that point. I know she reads newspapers and magazines. I think she was just...
she was afraid of being tripped up.
I think she was irritated at that point. She just wanted me to go away.
But it was good. It was a very good interview. And it even got shown in the movie they just did.
Oh, and Game Change. Yeah. Whoever played my body double, though, in the two-shot, it's like they put a broom on her head.
Yeah, that wasn't
it did
your
not
hair.
Look like hair. I was like, of course only we would notice that. I was like, that is not my hair. My hair doesn't look like that.
So funny.
It looked like hay. I'd like to show you all. See, my hair doesn't look like that. No, it's not, pretty. But it doesn't look like hay.
This is from Marcy. You've done so much with colon cancer. What are the most important things we need to know about it? And what age should people start being concerned? That's a.
I'm really glad Marcy asked this because I am the colon cancer
know you are.
encyclopedia.
I know
So to
you
give you
are.
a quick rundown, Marcy, first of all, women are diagnosed as often as men. So it's critically important that women remember that. Sometimes they get, people get confused and they're like prostate, colon,
Right.
colon cancer, women in equal numbers. African Americans, there's a greater incidence and mortality rate in African Americans, and they're not sure why. It could be something physiological, or it could be something to do with access to care. So basically, when you're 50 years old, you need to get a screening, some kind of colon cancer screening. The colonoscopy is really the gold standard. Flexible sigmoidoscopy only traverses half the colon, so I always say it's like getting a mammogram on one breast. It's not that thorough. But you should talk to your doctor about it, and then if you have any relatives, first-line relatives, like a father, mother, brother, aunt, who's had colon cancer. And what's so interesting in cancer, Marlo, is that I think even a few generations ago, people really didn't know where the primary tumor was. You would just hear like, oh, my great-grandfather died of cancer.
Right.
And nobody really knew what kind, because it usually, by the
Yeah.
time they succumbed to the disease, it had metastasized all over. So you should try to find out about your family history. And if you're under 50, and usually it's asymptomatic, you don't have any symptoms, it's a very silent cancer. But if you have anything like unexplained weight loss or a change in your bowel habits, blood in your stools, anything like that, and that can sometimes just mean darker stools. It doesn't necessarily going to see blood in the toilet bowl.
Right.
But anything, and if you're not feeling right, you should go and talk to your doctor about
50
it.
is the cutoff.
50 is the starting age, the recommended age for a screening colonoscopy. Then if you have polyps removed, you often have to go 3 to 5 years after that.
Right.
But if you're clean, which I was last spring when I had my colonoscopy, except they did find a lipstick and a Batman figurine. That was just a joke. I did I did a jokey colonoscopy because I just thought, you gotta have a sense of humor about that stuff. And they found a feather duster too. And I was wondering, I was so ticklish there. But anyway, but 50, you should get a screening colonoscopy. But again, 13,000 people under the age of 50 are diagnosed every year. And so it's just something you need to be aware of. Talk to your doctor if you're concerned. And if by all means, you are worried, you should get something done before the age of 50, I think.
Okay, we got it right from the horse's something here. Okay, Gretchen wants to know, how do you stay healthy and fit, and any tips for moms? You're very healthy and fit. Do you walk in the park? Do you
I
run?
do. I'm actually going to walk in the park with my daughter after
Great.
we're done.
Oh, good.
I'm sort of sporadic about my exercise routine, truth be told. But lately, I think because I turned 55, I've been doing more exercise because, everyone says, oh, when you go through menopause, you're going to get so fat and all the weight goes around your belly and it all transfers. So I've been trying to stave that off, and I've been really into spinning lately because it's one of those.
That's great.
It's one of those exercise routines where you can't kind of stop and say, I'm tired, because I'm kind of lazy.
Right.
And, if I start running or if I start doing something, I might just say, I don't want to do this anymore.
Right.
But it's 45 minutes of pretty intense exercise, and you sweat, and you have to stay
And
with
it's in
it.
a class, right?
It's in a class. The
Yeah.
music's really good.
Right.
I wear earplugs because it's too loud, and I think everybody's going to go deaf because people listen to music.
But also,
that's
if
too
you have
loud.
a lot of people around, you get competitive too.
Yeah, well, I do get a little competitive.
Yeah.
These people are so intense. I can't begin
you
to
wouldn't
compete
get
with
off.
them. No, I wouldn't get off. That would be so embarrassing. But tips for moms, I think they have a lot of classes now that you can take, and you can actually do like stroller aerobics
I
and
know. I see
things
them
like
in the
that.
park.
And I also kind of think that you're gonna be a better mom if you take time out to take care of yourself. So I
Absolutely.
don't think you should feel guilty about having a babysitter, having someone watch your child for a
Right.
few hours while
you take some time.
you take some time for yourself. I think that is really so important.
Here's a question from Katie Donovan. She says, "Hi, Katie. You always seem so up. Do you consider yourself an optimistic person?"
Hi, Katie. Yes, I do. I've always been kind of a glass half full. My husband, I wrote him this book, used to say I was born on a sunny day, which I thought was such a sweet thing to
That's a
say.
sweet
But
thing.
yeah, I think I'm just kind of wired that way.
Yeah.
I've always been a pretty positive person.
Me too.
I'm certainly have my down moments, and I get depressed and lonely, and
Sure.
but for the most part, I think I try to have a really positive attitude. And I think when you're a positive person, you attract
You do.
positive energy.
And also you get up faster.
Yeah.
You know, I have a very low attention span for my being down.
Yeah.
You know, I talk myself out of it. Okay,
You
let's go.
do?
Let's go. Let's
You
get up.
do?
Oh yes, I can.
Yeah,
I have
well,
a great inner monologue.
That's good.
I do.
I need you.
do.
I need to get that script.
Okay, I'll give it to you. This is from Yolanda. Is there anyone you ever oh, this is a good question. Is there anyone you ever interviewed who you really changed your mind about after the interview, either positively or negatively? Like, did you not like somebody or think you weren't going to like them, and then you interviewed them and they turned out to be, you know, kind of somebody you did like, or vice
somebody I
versa?
didn't like.
Yeah. Or somebody you thought you were going to just love?
I had kind of a tough experience with Denzel Washington when he did The Manchurian Candidate. I think he was just in a bad mood. He also, I think, was in A Midsummer Night's Dream, the movie, and came on the Today Show, and he was just kind of, I don't know, he was just not very, a not very generous interview. And I think he was just having a bad day, to be perfectly honest, because I interviewed him another time, and I think he knew it because he gave me a check for the National Colorectal Cancer Research Alliance, which I thought was so sweet.
Yes.
But at the time, I was like, oh gosh, I love you. I love your acting.
Right.
I used to watch you on St. Elsewhere. I love everything you do. And I think he was just in a bad mood, and he was just
What about some of
kind
those
of
really-
tough and defensive.
Those kind of, you know, those world leaders, people that you don't really know at all, and you think, oh, this guy's going to be scary, or this woman is going to be tough to talk to, and then they're not. Have you ever had-
Yeah, I'm trying to
'cause
think.
there's so many
I was
important
nervous
people.
about interviewing Sarkozy, but I thought he was très charmant, ultimately. And I think President Bush, President George W. Bush, you know, I thought he was really very charming. I got to know him much better when I was the anchor of the CBS Evening News, because they would have us to the White House for lunch. That was so cool, by the
Right,
way.
yeah.
Before the State of the Union or before
Right.
a big announcement or whatever, to talk off the record. And I found him to be, when he was in a relaxed setting, I think he got nervous when all the cameras were on him.
Right.
And he, you know how when you try to be articulate, you can't be
No, I
articulate?
know.
And I think it used to kind of make him feel stuck. But he was quite well versed on the issues, very well versed on the issues, and very impressive in terms of how, you know, how conversant he was on so many
yeah.
different things.
When
So
it was off camera.
yeah, and so I was pleasantly surprised
that's
by
good,
his
yeah.
intelligence,
That's interesting.
and not that I didn't think he was intelligent. I just thought I was just very impressed in a casual setting with how knowledgeable he was about
and
everything.
easier about
yeah,
it. And
yeah,
easier
yeah,
about it.
yeah.
That's interesting. Could you tell her that this is Terry,
Uh-huh.
that my daughter Katie was named after her because I always watched the Today Show, and I was so impressed that she was smart and funny and serious, and all attributes I wanted from my daughter rolled into one. She's a true role model. My daughter Katie will be 18 May 5th. So my question is, how has she juggled all the demands of her job with being a single parent? Well, that's nice to know you.
So
have
nice.
somebody named after you.
Yeah, well, first of all, happy 18th birthday, Katie, my namesake. That's such a high compliment, so I really appreciate that. I think what I said before,
Yeah.
you know, I just try to kind of take a step back and see, am I doing too much at work? Am I, you know, I never say, am I staying home too much?
Right.
Although once in a while I do. But, you know, am I going out to events too much? And I just try to really revisit it and kind of keep track of things. And, you know, my daughter will say, you've been gone too much lately,
Right,
Mom.
yeah.
And so she's a reminder of that. And, you know, once in a while things happen. I committed to a Habitat for Humanity event in Washington, and I didn't realize that it was on the same night as the Parents Visiting Day, you know, not parent-teacher conferences, but a parents' night
Right.
at my daughter's high school, which was just awful because I had committed 6 months earlier to this Habitat for Humanity thing in Washington, invited my mom to go, and yet I was missing Carrie's thing, which was just unconscionable.
Right.
So it was a real conundrum. I just couldn't do that to this organization. It was like their major fundraising
right.
event. But I also felt terrible about my daughter, and I explained it to her, and I had a friend go in my stead. But it is really hard, I think, when you are a
Yes.
single parent and you don't have that second person to
Right.
rely on
Right.
to take up the slack if something like that
Right.
happens. But it was terrible,
does
and I
sound
felt
ripping, yeah.
it was so awful. And Carrie was really mad at me.
I'm sure.
And rightfully so. But you know, those things really don't happen very often because I try to be
Yeah.
really
But they
careful. And
happen.
I always say, to Meredith, my great assistant, make sure we put down every school thing that Carrie has, because that takes priority.
Right. That's great. What is this is from Harriet. What's the riskiest thing you've done in your life since you turned 50?
I think probably, I guess it was probably just from a work standpoint. I was very nervous about going to Egypt for the revolution. And what was happening on Tahrir Square with the camels and the horses and the gunfire and the tasers and all that. I was very, very nervous about that. And, I do think about covering dangerous stories because as a single parent, obviously I want to cover the news, and I want to be a journalist who isn't terrified about going into certain places, but I also always want to be mindful of the fact that if something happens to me, my girls will be basically orphans.
Right.
So, it's something that I deliberate about much more than someone, I think, who has another parent with them. And
that's a huge.
So I guess I would maybe say that was, I didn't know what I was getting into, but ultimately it was a very frightening environment.
Somebody asked the question down here about how do you keep your composure when you're in a dangerous area doing an interview? I mean, do you say something to yourself? How do you keep it together if there's a lot of dangerous activity all around you?
Yeah, well, I think you just try to get it done as quickly as possible, to be honest with you. And if you're doing a stand-up, whether it's in Haiti after the earthquake or, you're in a, first of all, I try to be really careful about not putting myself too much in harm's way. I'm not a war correspondent. I really admire people like that.
Like Christy Amanpour.
So much, but I think I just try to get the job done as quickly as I possibly can, and try not to be foolish about.
Exactly. This is somebody wants to know that we all want to know. Tell us about your show for the fall. How exciting!
Yeah, I'm really excited. It's going to be a 1-hour syndicated talk show, and it's been sold in, I think, 96% of the country, which is really exciting.
Great.
It's going to be in the afternoon, mostly at 3 or 4 at stations across the country.
Perfect time.
And I think I'll be tackling all kinds of different issues, talking to all kinds of interesting people. And I've endless curiosity. I really am interested in so many things, health and medicine. I'm interested in sort of social trends. I'm interested in parenting. I'm interested in technology and the impact that's having on relationships, our children, et cetera. So it will really cover the gamut of things that people are talking about today and probably need more information. It's such a fragmented media landscape right now, and I think we're getting so much information fast and furiously, it's hard to synthesize it and really understand what to do with it.
Will you have a band?
No, I won't have a band. I was going to ask you if you'd be interested in playing the kazoo when I walked out on stage.
I'm the booker. I've already got my job on your show.
Maybe Bill could play something. Does he play an instrument?
He plays the clarinet.
Oh, excellent. I love the clarinet.
There you go.
Can you imagine?
This is from Lauren. Hi, Katie. What do you think are important issues for women nowadays? And where is there still work to do for women? This is a big question, but...
That is a big question. I'm sure you have some things to say about this, too.
But what do you think are the important issues for women nowadays?
Well, I just participated in a documentary called Misrepresentation. I thought they did such a good job about how women are portrayed in popular culture and how far we have to go to get more women in politics, on boards, in boardrooms, and also at the highest levels of various corporations. So I think we have made progress, but I sometimes worry that we're going backwards because I feel as if everyone wants to look nice. I mean, and I feel like women are being objectified in a way and sexualized in a way that they weren't. I don't think women need to be automatons and wear those little bow ties and blue blazers or dress like men. But at the same time, I feel like we've taken a step back in a way.
There's an awful lot of lip gloss,
and there's an awful lot of flesh showing on TV, whether it's cleavage or arms or. I think you know, it's a fine line. You want to be respected, but I still think most women want to be considered hot, and I think there's something a little wrong with that. I think the balance is out of whack. So I think that obviously, I think women still only make 77 cents for every dollar men make. That there are more women in the workforce than men now. I think childcare needs to be you know, much improved and provided for working families. So I think there are a lot of areas, and you know, I think the more women in leadership positions, the more women in positions that are underneath them, because people generally hire people like them, you know, whether we like it or not. Even even if they're trying,
You have a lot of optimism.
yeah, exactly. But
staff.
you know, I think that there's an expression: if you can't see them, you can't be them. So we need to have women who can be role models for other women, and who can also, in turn, make sure that other women are a part of the equation. I was moderating a UN panel, and the president of Brazil, who's female, said as soon as she took office, you know, she put several women in cabinet positions. So you see, I think, you know, that's why it's so important, because there really is a trickle-down effect, and that's why we need to improve things in all leadership areas.
And you always want to see people that are like you around you. Just can't help but not want to be the only one that's anything.
But that's why it's important to have minorities like African Americans, Hispanics, because diversity shouldn't happen because it's being mandated. It should happen because it's organic to the organization.
Because it is representative.
Right, exactly, obviously.
And we don't. I'm getting all kinds of. Okay, I'm getting the hook. I'm getting the hook.
Oh, you are?
Yeah. So I've been getting it for a long time, but I'm so greedy about having you here. But this is a good question that we probably want to know about. This is from Marian Dominic. She can't wait for your new show, and she wonders who will be your first interview and who would be a dream interview.
Marian, if I told you that, I'd have to kill you, because I'm not going to be telling you on Marlo's show, seen by millions of people nationwide, not to mention globally, that you know who my first interview is going to be. We've got some ideas.
Who would be some dream interviews?
I mean, obviously, I would really be interested in talking to Amanda Knox at some point about her experiences. I mean, there's so many people I'd be interested in talking to.
Will you be going? Will you be doing any remotes or?
Yeah, I think we're going to do pop-up shows and show up if there's a big story somewhere. I would travel to that location. I think we're going to have a lot of flexibility, hopefully.
Especially if you don't have a band, you'll be able to go anywhere.
Yeah, exactly. But it's still a work in progress, and we're still trying to figure a lot of this out. But you know, I always wanted to interview Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis, Princess Diana is somebody I had always wanted to interview. Obviously, Kate Middleton is somebody I would love to talk to, and Prince William, and Pippa would be fun too, obviously. So I think, you know, I would like to interview the president of Brazil and talk to her, and you know, women leaders everywhere, and Indra Nooyi from PepsiCo. You know, I think it's important that we give exposure to some of these women in leadership positions, so little girls at home and little boys can see that and say, that's great, I want to be like that, or I want to work for someone like that.
Yeah, well, that's what people think when they watch you.
No, I don't know about that. I hope so. I mean, I hope people, one of the reasons I took the job at CBS is I was the first solo anchor, and I wanted people to see that a woman could do that job as competently as a man could, by herself, because there had been pairings of men and women before. And I thought it was really kind of, I think television can be very, very symbolic.
It was very exciting.
And very influential. You know, I think I was influenced not only by Anne Marie from that girl, but you know, because you had a career and you were in New York, and you had those pretty eyelashes and that cute hat, and you had diamonds and daisies and springtime, that girl. And you had Donald Hollinger and all that, and you lived in Brewster, and I liked your dad. Anyway, I know, please, security. So, but you know, I was very influenced by the Mary Tyler Moore show growing up, because I saw Mary Richards, you know, had a job, and she was out there in a newsroom, and I think television is very, very powerful if you talk about the Cosby Show and how that broke down stereotypes. So I do think that people on television have a responsibility and have to be mindful of the fact that people, it's more than just a job sometimes. You do become a symbol of something else.
Well, I remember your first night in your white jacket. In
Oh
that
yeah,
great
people
set.
trash me.
No,
No, people said she's wearing white after Labor Day, and I was
Oh,
like, "Excuse
please.
me,
Oh, stop.
it's winter white,
No,
and
no,
it's perfectly
no,
fine."
I didn't mean to step you
Oh
to
no,
that.
no, that's okay. That's
But
okay.
I
But
remember,
it was
I
upsetting
remember it
that's what-
vividly because it was so exciting.
Yeah.
It was just so exciting to see you there, the first woman anchor. It was thrilling.
Thank you. Well,
Yeah, it
a lot
was
of people
thrill.
weren't as thrilled as you were, but
Many of us were, and we're going to be just as thrilled to watch you in your new show.
Thank you,
Is it
Marlo.
called Katie?
it is. It's a very original name. It's funny. We were having a meeting, and with a straight face, I said to some of my colleagues, it was just a small staff at the time, and really still is as we're building up. But I said, I've been thinking and thinking. I think I came up with a really good name for my show. And they're like, really, what? And I said, I think we should call it Afternoon Delight. And that was, the Starland Vocal Band when I was in high school sang that. And they were from Northern Virginia where I grew up. And they were all like, what?
It sounds
And I was
like-
it sounds like a bit of a porn channel.
It sounds
or
like an
something,
iced
doesn't
tea.
it?
It sounds like an iced tea to
Well,
me.
of course, I say it sounds like porn, and you say it sounds like an iced tea. So there you have it, how our minds work differently. But they were all like, ha ha. And I said no. But we thought about it, and, I'm kind of like Charo and Cher and Marlo. I need one name.
No,
I'm
you
kidding,
didn't.
I'm kidding. But we
No,
just
but
thought
I
Katie.
mean Rosie and Oprah and Donahue, they're all one name.
Yeah.
You know.
How come Phil was Donahue and not Phil?
I don't know why. I
Yeah,
guess
I
it
wonder
was
if that has something to
longer,
do with gender or
stronger.
something. Isn't
I
that
doubt
interesting?
it. Dr. Oz, Dr. Phil, maybe.
Well, Dr. Phil.
Yeah. Anyway, time is not only up, it's over up. But,
Yeah, sorry.
But it took me so long to get her here. I was just
Cut
gonna
off my caffeine
use
intake
every
back.
second.
Sorry.
Thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you next week.
And
Bye-bye.
thanks for all your questions. That was fun. Thanks, Marlo.
Yeah.
Mwah.